Hey guys, it's Will. In this video, I want to talk to you about the biggest mistake that people make when they try and invest money. It's the biggest mistake that they make, and it's one of the biggest ones that they always harp on and they talk about, and oftentimes they brag about. And it's detrimental in a lot of ways. And I've seen wealthy people who have made a lot of money make this same mistake. And this is a mistake that they make because they're investing and they get into personal finance and maybe they get into investments and stocks. And the truth of the matter is, they didn't make their money in this area, so they know close to nothing about this. And this is very dangerous because, you can easily get very arrogant because maybe you made a lot of money, so you think you're an expert in all areas, which oftentimes you're not. And so sometimes people make money selling cars or in tech or whatever else, and then they think that they can apply the same knowledge to other areas when they can't, and that's how they lose their first million and so forth. It happens. And so I don't claim to be a financial expert, but I recommend that you actually look into this. And also the whole financial expert area, financial advisor area, oftentimes that's something you should be cautious of too, because there's a lot of people who are advisors who are really just charging you really large fees to manage your money, and they're making a ton of money off of the high percentage fees that they're charging you, which is far more than you should be paying anyone to do this. And the whole thing's a bit of a scam in and of itself. So you really have to just do your research on that. And if you don't have that much time to do that research, there's sources you can turn to and look to. But that's not what this video is about. We want to talk about this mistake. So what is it? Basically, it's this whole idea or belief that, and everyone has it. I've seen this happen so often. It's this idea, oh, I just made 35% on my money, or oh, I just made a return of 50%. And what that basically means is that they just made back 50% of what they invested, and they have kept their principal. So let's say they invested $100,000 or maybe $1,000 in something, and over the course of a month or a week, that value is now at $150. And so they think that they're like Warren Buffett, or they're like business magnates or whatever. And do you honestly think that if it was that simple, why wouldn't everyone be doing this? It's obviously not that simple. And Warren Buffett, literally, he reads 8 hours a day, and he's been doing this for 60 plus years. Do you honestly think that it's that simple to do so? So you have to be a little bit cautious of all the stuff out there. And the reason that these people say this is that they think that they have made that money and it's so simple to do. And oftentimes they'll humble brag about it or say how smart they were or whatever. And unfortunately, I see this all the time. I've seen a few like gamers. There's this one gamer in particular, and he has quite a following on YouTube. And so, he said that he wanted to get into personal finance and, actually invest his money and save it for the long term. Unfortunately, that's from the get-go a good thing because most people don't consider doing that. But then, he makes the mistake of, bragging about this and thinking it's so easy and saying how he just, put all this money into this stock and made all that money. And obviously you can tell what happens. That's very risky. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get burned really quickly. And I don't need to say any more. But he made this whole video humble bragging about it. And I was just really a bit pissed off. And he's not the only example out there of people who have done this. There are people who are humble, good-hearted individuals who have worked hard to make their money, and they've made quite a lot of their money, and then they get advice to do this, and they're like, oh, this is so simple. I just made 35%. Here's the big thing I want to get to you. If you learn nothing else from this video, this is the biggest thing. If you look at the long term, that is where the real results lie in. So the truth of the matter is, and no one tells people this, but Short-term results do not matter. You can make 35% in a week or a month, but most likely you will probably be losing another 50%, or it'll go up and down, and your 1 year track record and your 5 year record or your 10-year track record will be far lower on average. And so what really matters is the long term, not like how much you gain in a month or a week. And I decided to make this video to help people who are open to listening to this. I know there's going to be plenty of people who, for whatever reason, will not listen to this, who will listen to this video and continue. And the thing is, I am trying my best to help others out there. And, I do think that there are some smart people out there who are at least willing to consider this. And the truth is, like, if you can do like a 10% or 20% annual return for 5 years in a row or 10 years in a row, God forbid, 20 years in a row, that will put you into, hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. If you can keep that up for 40 years, like, you will be one of the richest people in the world. Now, 20%, that doesn't seem like a lot, but, in terms of long-term track record, that small return compounded exponentially year by year grows to that amount. And, why do all these, scam artists and, people who, talk about this only talk about the short term and what occurred in the last month or the last week or maybe the last year? It's because their results are very sporadic and they never play the long game. And if you actually look at their long-term records, which oftentimes they will hide, it's not that, good, because maybe they'll make, 35% in a week, but then they'll lose it, or they'll be down 50%, or maybe their year-long results will be 5%. And the thing is, there's so many of these tricks and tactics that people use, and I cannot list all of them. It's just to illustrate how there's much more than meets the eye that requires research in these types of things. There's just to name a few small tactics. I can't go into detail in this short video, but there are things like how big mutual funds, they will basically create 20 funds, and then they will run these funds for the next 5 years. And the ones who don't do well, they will close down. And the ones who do well, they will keep up. So it looks like they had this all-star track record, when what they're really doing is just spraying and praying. And another thing people will do is, maybe they'll be a little bit smart and they'll be like, you see, I'm not running the short-term game. I will gladly show you my 1 year or 5 year records. And they'll show it to you and it'll look pretty good. And people will say, wow, look at that. This man returned 10% or 20% in the last 5 years or the last 1 year. In reality, though, oftentimes they're hiding a lot of hidden fees. Oftentimes these aren't like the actual returns. They're fudging the numbers a bit. They're not, subtracting tax and other stuff. Or, maybe the 1 year or 5 year is decent. But in my opinion, in your opinion, and in everyone's, best interest, assuming that you will live a healthy life, then if you're probably going to, invest for the long run until your 60s or 70s or 80s, you probably don't care what the 5 year return is. And I still consider 1 year and 5 year returns very short term. And there's plenty of people who screw around and do a lot of shady stuff, like, a lot of debt, a lot of shady investing into companies to get a good 1 year or 5 year return. But then the 40 year return is complete crap, or they're losing their clients' money, or they're not making a lot of money, or they're taking out a exorbitant amount of fees every year. And 1% fee may not seem like a lot, but when you compound that out over 40 years, they're taking like half of what you make. So if you, over that time, if you compound, a small nest egg of $10,000 into maybe $400,000, then in fees alone, they could take about half of it. So that's, obviously, as you can tell, it goes a lot deeper. And I don't claim to be expert in this. I just know enough to know that you have to do your research, because it's a scary world. And I don't want to scare you guys, because, if you just pick out some good books, you will better understand things. So the one book I recommend is Common Sense on Mutual Funds by uh, Jack Bogle. And it's a bit of a dense book. I listened to it through audiobook, which made it a lot easier to consume. So that's one book I'll check out. I'll leave it in the description below. And I guess the last thing I want to say is, for the average person out there, don't get scared. It's not as crazy and as you think. And I do think the book I just recommended will help you like simplify things. And it's really not as bad as you think. However, this isn't something that should be played around with, or that you should look at the short term with. And it's kind of stupid how people do. And unfortunately, there's a lot of natural things wired into most humans based on their psychology that makes them do a lot of stupid things while investing because they don't understand or know any better. And there's plenty of books on that as well. Again, let's not go too deep onto that, but there are things that screw you over. For instance, when the market plunges, people rush out of the market because they don't know any better. They see everyone losing, they see everyone else getting out, they see that they're not making a large return, so they just get out of the market because they don't understand what the market actually is. What is the stock? What is that? I don't know. I'm just losing money, so I get out. In reality, a stock is a part ownership in a business. And if the core economics of the business is going well, if you own a McDonald's and the stock market plunges, but you still see people lined up constantly at McDonald's and the numbers check out and the cash flow checks out, then honestly, the price of the stock is just influenced by the manic mind of the stupidity and craziness of the average general public who are trying to sell out because they don't know any better. But if what's actually happening is simply that the price that you can buy this business for has gone down dramatically and you should be buying. So these are small things that people don't realize, and it causes them to get into a mutual fund or get out in the absolute wrong times. And that's why there have been studies done and surveys done where most people, they get in and out of their mutual fund at the absolute wrong time, and they end up earning a fraction of what that mutual fund actually earns for their investors every year because they're selling when they should be buying and buying when they should be selling. And that's just retarded in of itself. So I don't really want to get too deep into this. In fact, I may disable comments because, like it or not, this isn't really a video for the general public. I mean, it kind of is, but unfortunately, it will also attract a lot of people who, they don't know anything about investing or finance, and yet they have these long-winded opinions and they think they know better. So that's what I want to say. And I made this video really to help the people who I'm looking for, who really just, have an open mind and are willing to take some advice. And that's really all I wanted to say. So as always, like and subscribe. I'll see you in my next video. Peace.